Ladies and gentlemen, welcome along to another edition of the Football Insomniac. He was so good last week, we've had to bring him back once again. Sean McGill, thank you once again for joining us on this lovely Friday evening.
Cheers, Robin. It's beautiful, isn't it? I was just saying to you before we started broadcasting that I'm a bit burnt. I'm trying to hide it with my jumper and keeping my head straight on so you can't see the sunburn on the side of my face.
If it does accidentally come up, I'm sure someone will pick up on it. But what a week it's been in football, and we have a lot to discuss. We'll also be joined later on by Robbie Hanratty for the Insomniac Shootout quiz, but a big warm welcome to everyone who's joining us. I know there's beer gardens and everywhere else you could be, but if you're joining us, thank you very much. Now, we're going to start today with the big sort of talking point that comes at this time of the season, and it's when players start to go out of contract. Now, you've probably already seen it. You have your own team who's already picking up some of these players, but there is a depth of talent already out there. So myself and Sean set ourselves the challenge to put together the best 11 of those that are still available. And we're going to discuss both our teams and see whose is the strongest. So, Sean, you are the guest co-host, so I'll let you go first. Who have you put in as your goalkeeper?
I feel like goalkeeper was one of the easiest ones. There seemed to be a very strong candidate. So I have gone for Gigi Donnarumma formerly of AC Milan. He's always been a hot prospect. He's made over 200 appearances since making his debut for AC Milan at 16. And it sounds like they're very keen to keep him, but there's something sort of going on with his contract. Talks are frozen just now is what's coming out of the club. But I think he was the outstanding candidate for between the sticks.
So it's not Ophir or Marciano then? We're not going for Ophir? No, right, okay, I need to scribble that one out. No, I've actually went as well for Gigi Donnarumma. 250 games for Milan. He started, 16 when he made his debut? It's incredible. And he's been linked with Spurs, PSG and Juve. Where do you think he'll end up this summer?
I can see whenever contract talks are sort of frozen or like drawn out, I think they usually end up happening. He seems like the type of player who could stay at Milan for a very, very long time, especially considering they've sort of gone up in the last few years. Are looking like they could sort of fight for titles again, even though they fell off in the second half of last season. So my gut instinct would be he stays at Milan, but I think he's a very, very promising keeper. And with an Italian manager like Conte possibly going to Spurs, that's another one. They'll need someone to succeed Hugo Lloris as he sort of approaches the latter stages of his career. So yeah, maybe Spurs would make sense, but probably Milan first. I'm not sure about Celtic there. I don't know if I see him making that in the comments.
You and Boy Martin coming in to say Celtic's first signing. I think we can all be optimistic, or maybe Ewan's already had a couple this evening. I'm sure I'll be joining them after this. There's some other good candidates out there in the goalkeeping position, though. You've got Gianluigi Buffon that we discussed a couple of weeks ago on here, and also the Granada goalkeeper Rui Silva, who has been attracting a lot of interest from the Premier League as well. So some really good goalkeepers out there. But yeah, I think you can't deny the fact that if Gigi Donnarumma's available, he would be the one. If you were building a team from scratch with only out-of-contract players, he's the one that you tie down.
Another one I want to give a shout out to when you mentioned the Granada keeper there. One of my favourite moments of this season was Marko Dimitrovic, the Eibar keeper, taking a penalty against Atletico Madrid in the 11th minute of the game. It's not like some weird, like everyone was injured. This was clearly the plan. If we get a penalty in this game, our goalkeeper's on it. And it's something that's been talked about a lot with Ederson, because apparently Man City have had their penalty sort of troubles, and he's meant to be a fantastic penalty taker. And Eibar just went, well, we're going to do it. And their goalkeeper took the penalty, stepped up, slotted it home. And so when I saw he was out of contract, I was like, that's a little sort of weapon that could come to my team. But I did think on the whole, I should go with Donnarumma.
Maybe Man United could have been doing with him for the Europa League penalty shootout the other night. So we were discussing before we came on air, I have only 3 defenders. What have you got lined up?
I've got a back 4.
Right, okay. So I'll let you start with the right back then.
Go with the right back. So this one was interesting. There was a few options, but no sort of standout candidate. And I wanted to go sort of a little bit left field, not stick to maybe Premier League players as such. So I've gone for Hysaj from Napoli, a sort of player that he'd come up quite a lot. One of those sort of cheap, like good buys. Still only 28 years old. He's out of contract at Napoli. It chips in with a fair assist and goal throughout the season. And I just thought that to go a bit left field, I didn't know you were going for the back three, so I thought we'd maybe have a few of the same players. I've gone for Sergio Napoli.
This is like when we play each other on FIFA, we've surprised each other with the formations here. All right, so move into the centre-half position then, and we'll compare who we've got here, but I have a feeling they might be very similar.
I mean, you've got to have Sergio Ramos, don't you?
Yeah, you've got to. For me, the big surprise for him is that he wasn't included in the Euro squad for Spain. I think someone with that experience, over 650 games for Real Madrid, what I was actually surprised at is his goal return. He's got over 100 goals for Real Madrid as well, which is incredible. Linked to Man United and Man City, I'd definitely be one of the first names in that team sheet.
Yeah, another one who takes penalties as well, and it's maybe a bit surprising, but he's been banging them in for Real Madrid this season, and he's going to come up with a big goal. We've seen that countless times throughout his Real Madrid career, a born leader. And you're saying that about the Spain squad. I mean, his fitness is going to be in question, but he's one of those ones that you can imagine taking just for the experience, just for his leadership quality, because he has such a big presence. And I'd say that there's sort of a lot of conversation about how defending has declined over sort of in recent generations as football's quickened up and stuff like that. And I think that you look at, like, Virgil van Dijk's probably the best centre-back in the world just now, but over the last 10, 15 years, I think Sergio Ramos has been the best centre-back in world football. And even though he is sort of winding down, I think, you can see Man City, Man United linked to him. A big club will come in for him, and I'm sure he'll do a very good job still.
It is one of those sort of dying arts. It's the no-nonsense centre-half that comes in, wins everything in the air, wins everything in the ground. He isn't one that looks to play it out, but he stops the ball from getting in his own net, and that is one of the most important things. And I think that's why you're still seeing him being linked with your Man Uniteds and your Man Cities, because they definitely need someone like that. Now, I've got two centre-halves left. You've only got one, which means one of my two isn't going to be in your team. So I'm going to be interested to see who you've got here.
Well, I've again gone left field because I know some of the obvious ones. I'll let you touch on them. And I was wanting to keep the sort of average age of my team down a little bit because
it's quite old. I looked at that. It's quite old.
Pretty old, aren't they? So I wanted to try and bump mine down a bit. So I've gone left field. I've gone for Fabian Balbuena at West Ham. He's out of contract this summer, just 28 years old. And I feel like you've got Ramos. You want somebody with maybe a little bit more legs than them. You don't want to be sort of getting caught out with these high lines and balls over the top in modern football. So I thought I'm going to stick away from some of the big names. And I want my team to be a real team. So I've gone for Balbuena.
So in my centre-half trio, I have Sergio Ramos. I have Jerome Boateng, who is leaving Bayern Munich this summer, linked with Spurs and Roma. And do you know what? A bit of entertainment, a bit of hilarity in here. I've gone with David Luiz. David Luiz, set to leave Arsenal, the best sideshow Bob impersonator in the world. You know what? We're speaking about this experience, and yeah, maybe he's not got the legs to keep up with some of the strikers now, but if you've got that experience between the three of them at the back, that's something you can really rely upon, especially with Donnarumma only being 22, still building that experience up. He's talking about moving to the MLS, which is probably going to be a good move for his career, but who's to say this isn't an MLS team that we're starting up? So let's put these three in at centre half.
Yeah, I would be a bit worried about the pacing behind, maybe apart from David Luiz, but yeah, there are three interesting players. I don't know how they'd coexist as a back three. I feel like they'd all quite like to be sort of the leader, the one, especially Luiz and Ramos. I mean, I imagine those two would get in a few sort of training ground arguments, but I think it would make for good entertainment, and maybe that's what we should be looking for.
That's why Boateng's in there. He's the nice calming influence. He's been there, done it all. He is, in fact, he's getting the captain's armband. That's it. You've convinced me now. He's my captain.
The calming
exactly. So who have you got in at left back?
Left back again. There's no real standout, but a few sort of quiet like Premier League options who would be noticed. But there was one that I was looking at was Barry Douglas. He's gone very quiet, and recently he's been talking about coming back to Scotland. That was one that I sort of considered.
Do you think he'll end up back up here?
He seems to be sort of talking about it in a way that he's sort of trying to put the feelers out there, sort of get people noticing him and see that he's a free agent. Because, I mean, since Bielsa came in at Leeds, it's kind of just petered out for Barry Douglas. I know he's struggled with fitness and stuff like that, and he's had his loan spells. I think he was most recently at Blackburn, but it just hasn't really made. And we were really excited about Barry Douglas, and then Andy Robertson, Kieran Tierney, Greg Taylor all come around, and he just goes way down the pecking order.
Yeah.
But I would like to see him in Scotland. It maybe would be a bit comforting for him to be back up at home in an atmosphere that he knows. So I'd like to see it and see what he's still got in his locker, because I think there's something to prove for Barry Douglas, considering that sort of fall from grace. But I have gone for Alioski at Leeds as my left back.
Great
really
shout.
exciting player. And he can sort of he can play left back, he can play left mid. He's played in sort of central attacking roles as well. And Leeds seem keen to keep him, even though he's not always played. I know Stuart Dallas has been around that side, and he takes turns with the right back. And it's obviously very, very fluid at Leeds under Bielsa. But Alioski is the one for me. I think he's a really dynamic player. And like I said, I didn't want it to be sort of all old sort of. I'm not having any of your has-beens, Colin. That's the thing. So,
that's what we're called. You're called Has-Been FC. That's it.
That's the one.
Graham Caldwell coming in to say Juan Bernat from PSG is a solid option for left back. Now, I did look into this, but it does turn out that he signed a new contract through to 2025, I believe. So, unfortunately, he's out there. And Owen Mulhern coming in to say Northern Macedonian king is Alioski. Is he involved in the Euros? Did he get picked for the squad? I take it.
I'm going to assume
I've got to say, he must have done. So we're moving into midfield. I have 4 in midfield. Have you gone with a 4 as well?
I have, but it's a bit of a diamond I've got going on.
That's exactly what I've got going on here as well. So who is in the hole?
I've got Fernandinho as my CDM. I have been saying about your has-beens and your old players, right? But there's a time and a place, and when you're a player as gifted as Fernandinho and everything that he's done over the past 10 years, I think he's been absolutely fantastic. It was crazy to me that Pep Guardiola left him out of the Champions League final, considering his experience in big games, the way that he can just break up. I mean, he's the sort of tactical fouling king in the Premier League, and I think that tactical fouls are fantastic. When it's not your team, it's a great laugh. Like a good tactical foul can just bring a boring game to life completely. So I think that he'll bring experience to my team and a real sort of defensive quality if we're going to sort of push the wing backs high. Because we don't have much width in this diamond, I think that Fernandinho will be the one to break stuff up.
So in the hole, I have Javi Martinez from Bayern Munich. Still only 32. I think a lot of people think he's a bit older than what he is. Brings bags again of experience, and he's done that role basically his whole career, and he's one of the best in the world at it. So the fact that he's available this summer, 9 years he was at Bayern Munich, he'll be a great addition wherever he ends up. Who is the 2 in front?
So my 2 8s are Gini Wijnaldum, who I expect you to have as well.
Yeah, I've got him.
And I've also got Julian Draxler, who is set to leave PSG.
Is he set to leave? See, he was on my list for consideration, but I thought he'd signed a new deal, so you might have one up me here.
Still on my list. Maybe I've missed something, but on my sources, he was still there. But I'm sure some of the comments will tell us.
So from the ENRG sources, Julian Draxler is still available for a free transfer this summer. Someone in the comments will let us know. I have gone with Gigi Wijnaldum, and alongside him, maybe a bit of a controversial choice here, but I've gone with Ryan Gold.
He's my number 10.
Oh, he's your number 10. Well, maybe not such a controversial decision, but I mean, this is a guy who, for me, should have definitely been part of Scotland's Euro squad, although we'll touch on that later on after the fantastic performance against the Netherlands the other night. But 25 years old, he's someone who is just about to come into his peak years of his career. He's been linked with Benfica and Southampton, to name a few. I think he's someone that's got a lot to offer. He's done his work abroad, he's enhanced his game, and whoever he ends up at this season, they're picking up a fantastic signing.
I love the fact that he's had to be so resilient as well. I mean, there was so much fanfare around Ryan Gold. I mean, because when Ryan Gold broke through, I was sort of 11, 12, and he was all this talk about a Scottish Messi, and going to Barcelona and Real Madrid and all these teams. It made me so excited because I thought it seemed like one of the best players in the world could be Scottish. And I remember seeing him. Dundee United came to Rugby Park and they absolutely thrashed us 4-1. He was 4-1. He was fantastic that day, and I thought this guy's special. And he goes to Sporting, and you think that's a great sort of stepping stone. They're a club who can develop young talent. And you just don't hear anything for a long time. He comes back over to Hibs, and it was a really disappointing time. I think all of us sort of neutrals were wanting to see what he could do back in Scotland, and it just never really clicked for whatever reason. And at Firenze, he's been absolutely fantastic. He's by far the best player. He's won Player of the Month awards in Portugal. He's a real goal threat. He's their talisman. He's their captain. And they'll be gutted to lose him, but like you said, it'll be a fantastic addition for whoever gets him. And I like that sort of the fact that he's had to fight back, and he's really sort of growing into his career now. And it's not like you said, he's still got plenty of time on his side. He's only 25, so I think he'd be wanting to prove a point in our teams.
So you've got him in the number 10 position. In my number 10 position, I've gone with AC Milan's Hakan Kaglu, 27 years old. Again, another one that AC Milan are currently sitting on the fence about whether to try and renew his contract or not. I think Arsenal are very keen on him as well, but Arsenal have signed about a dozen number 10s in the last couple of seasons and they still can't get it right. So I don't advise that as a career choice for him if you're going to play in that position. But yeah, again, someone that's bringing down the average age of my has-been FC. So we're getting there.
I was thinking another really good one, and he's not quite perhaps on the same level yet, but I love Alan Campbell, who just left Motherwell this past season, because he's a real throwback, like we were talking about earlier on, in sort of like the lost art defending. But in midfield, he's just a proper terrier. Like, he'll just get in amongst it. He just doesn't stop running. And whenever I've seen Motherwell this season, he's just a constant presence in that midfield. And I think he's bound to get a really sort of strong English Championship move and make a mark down there, because he's like I said, he is sort of really physical and a presence in that midfield, but he's also technically a very good footballer. And a lot of the, obviously, coming out of Motherwell in the last year, David Turnbull was sort of the big prospect. But when he got injured, Alan Campbell, and they're very different players, but he sort of stepped into that midfield and took the burden. I'm getting told here that I'm talking rubbish with Julian Draxler.
Yeah, he's out your squad unless you're putting in a massive transfer fee.
Do you know what? Chuck Alan Campbell in then, because I've just...
You've talked yourself into including Alan Campbell in the side.
Yeah, I think that's a fair swap, Julian Draxler for Alan Campbell. So I'll take that.
Now, I've got to say, if whoever the new Celtic manager that comes in, I would have Alan Campbell as one of the top people on his list. I think he's obviously worked with Turnbull before. They've got that partnership. He's also a player I think that's going to develop massively. He's still only 22 now, so he's got years and years ahead of him, and I think he'll be one that really goes on to make a big name for himself. So I would have him in there. Now, you've got 2 up front, I've got 3 up front, so I'll go first this time. I've gone with, it's the obvious choices. The biggest name in free agency this summer is Leo Messi, 33 years old. Do we need to explain all his goals? What is it, 800 games, 600 odd goals? I think Barcelona will be daft not to re-sign him, and we'll discuss that later. He's obviously linked with PSG and Man City as well, maybe that reunion with Pep Guardiola, but Messi has to be in, has been FC. Alongside him, the villain from the other night, Memphis Depay, 27 years old. I actually thought he was older than that. I was really, really surprised how young he was.
He came over to Man United, didn't he? He was still so young when he first came over to the Premier League. We all knew his name. And so, he's still relatively young, considering that he's been in the sort of public consciousness for quite a long time now.
Yeah, so... he's also linked with Barcelona and Man United and Liverpool, and this is the one I wasn't 100% sure on who to go as the sort of one in the middle here. So we've got Messi one side, Depay the other, and for me it's between Olivier Giroud, who is leaving Chelsea this summer, 34-year-old, fantastic career that he's had, or do you want the Bulldog? Do you want Diego Costa up front? Now, everyone could say that Diego Costa's had a bit of a kind of off spell. He get released from Atletico Madrid, but everybody that you speak to says he's the hardest opposition that they've ever come up against. And we're going to need a bit of grit and guile in this team, so I don't know. That final position's still up for grabs.
Well, I think about an hour ago, Chelsea made that decision easier for you because they've renewed Giroud's contract. So I think,
come on!
I think they've made that one for you.
Oh, right, okay, right. Diego Costa, you are leading the line. Yeah, it's not as if I'm throwing out Julian Draxler and bringing in Alan Campbell. It
was a worse one for me.
So I've got Diego Costa up front. He's linked with a move to Benfica or to Turkey, but I honestly think he could probably still pop up in one of the lower table Premier League sides, someone that's maybe battling for relegation, having that fighter up front could be massive for them next season.
Yeah, and it was interesting what happened with him this season, because he's a very Diego Simeone type player. I mean, obviously he led the line when they first won that league title back in 2014 under Simeone, and he was apparently quite reluctant to release him considering all the work that he'd done for him previously. But it was sort of decided from like his assistant coaches and stuff like that it was just his attitude wasn't right, and they couldn't. In the season that Atletico were having, when they knew that there was a chance of winning another league title, they couldn't have any negative influences. So he was sort of reluctantly released. But I think he's still a very good player. He was one of my favourite players to watch in that sort of period of the Premier League. Like, just an absolute pest, but he was so talented at the same time as well. And Chelsea wouldn't have won those titles under Mourinho and then Conte without him, I don't think. I think he was just a fantastic player. Unsurprisingly, I have two of the three. I've gone with sort of split strikers in Memphis Depay and Leo Messi. And I think that those two will link up together at Barcelona, as I'm sure we'll get onto later on. And I think that they could provide a pretty... And they'll both go wide. It means Gold can sort of push forward and all that sort of stuff in my team. So I think... that front three of Depay, Gold and Messi could do some damage.
Definitely. And I know we're sort of bigging up Ryan Gold here. It'll probably come back and bite us later on if he goes on and has a shocking season next year. But I don't think he will. He's kind of been over that period of his career where he was unsure about the sort of next step for him. He took the step down to Firenze, as you were saying. They were in the league below, they got promoted, and he went on to win Player of the Year award, I think, for them this season, and Player of the Month awards for the whole league. So he's definitely a very good talent. But yeah, interestingly, you say that you believe that Messi and Depay will link up front for Barcelona. That's actually one of our talking points today, and it is the rebuild that's going on at Barcelona. Now, I'm giving you the floor here, Sean. You wrote a fantastic article on one of the players who Barcelona have picked up in free agency this year, and it's Sergio Aguero. Tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, it was an interesting one, Sergio Aguero going to Barcelona, because, I mean, Sergio Aguero is a fantastic player, and in the article I wrote for Energy Sport, I was kind of talking about that I have a lot of love for Sergio Aguero. Just think he's a fantastic player, and his goal in, against QPR to win Man City the title on the final day, snatching it from their City rivals. I mean, I'd loved going to the football, going to Kelly games before that, but I think that was one of the first times I thought, football's just class. Like, this is the highest form of drama there. You can sort of write it. I think it was just an amazing moment, and it will forever be one of the most iconic moments in Premier League history. But him going to Barcelona, I think, sort of speaks to the way that Barcelona have handled themselves over the past few years. Sergio Aguero improves that squad, there's no doubt about it. I mean, Martin Braithwaite has played up front a fair bit for Barcelona this season, so no matter what conditions Sergio Aguero's in, he's better than him. But a 32-year-old injury-prone Sergio Aguero kind of just sums up the way Barcelona have been going in recent years. Their transfer business hasn't paid off enough, and clubs across the world are struggling because of the coronavirus pandemic, and particularly Barcelona, Real Madrid and Juventus. That's why they're still clinging on to any hope of the Super League they can get. But if they hadn't made so many poor decisions, if Barcelona hadn't spent 120 million on Antoine Griezmann when he didn't fit the system and he was getting on a bit anyway, if they didn't spend a combined 300 million on Ousmane Dembele and Philippe Coutinho, who both haven't paid off at all.
Still bonkers that when you think on it.
Yeah, Dembele was off the back of one good season. They took a big risk for a lot of money on a talented young player, and it hasn't played off at all. You've also got Coutinho, who was meant to be sort of the heir to Iniesta. It just hasn't paid off at all for a number of reasons. I mean, the highlight of his time at Barcelona has been scoring against them in a Champions League quarter-final, the absolute thrashing last season. So they've not paid off either. I mean, another one, it's a sort of one that maybe goes a bit under the radar, but swapping 23-year-old Artur for 30-year-old Milan Pjanic, just a straight swap makes no sense.
And how many games did they play last season? I think he only played a handful of games.
Because Pjanic is more of a six. So if you're going to play as a six, Busquets is still going to play, And if he's not playing, you're going to play Frankie de Jong because he's missing out on the fact that his best position is a 6 and Busquets is pushing him out. So you're going to give him that opportunity when he gets it. So it really makes... And Artur he struggled in that last season at Barcelona, but he's the player that I've seen who most closely resembles Xavi in the way that just does those sort of like short, really technical passes so easily. And he was still so young at Barcelona that you'd have time to develop him. And Sergio Aguero is a good player, but I think that when you're signing players like him, like Gini Wijnaldum, who's 30, they're all free transfers this summer for Barcelona.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the way that a club the size of Barcelona should be doing their rebuild of free transfers?
I think this has come out of necessity. And for the background for anyone who isn't aware, you take a look at Barcelona's finances at the moment. They're 1.1 billion euros in debt, which is, even for a club the size of Barcelona, is incredible. That's the debt of a small country. 1.1 billion euros. Do you know what I mean? Like, so they had financial problems in the second half of the season. Players never got paid. They had to take out a €100 million loan to pay their players. They finished third in La Liga. Gradually, their performances in Europe are getting worse. Ever since they get knocked out from Liverpool a couple of seasons ago, it then went from the semi-final to the quarter-final, and then this year it was the last 16. And they are a team that has been on the decline now for, I'd say, probably the last 3 or 4 seasons. And one of the big nails in their coffin this year was actually letting Luis Suarez go for basically next to nothing to Atletico. And lo and behold, he goes and wins the league. So it just shows you some of the bad decision-making that was going on before Laporta came back in as president. Back there in, was it March he came back in?
Mm-hmm. I think the interesting thing about when you mentioned Luis Suarez there, he was 100% the catalyst for Atletico's league title. They let Suarez go because he was too old. He was about 6 months older than Sergio Aguero is just now. Yeah. And Suarez already had that relationship with Lionel Messi. Lionel Messi was furious at the fact that Suarez was kicked to the curb. I mean, Luis Suarez is a Barcelona legend at this point, and he's scored so many goals in his time there. He's been one of the best strikers over the past 10 years in football, and he was just cast aside, and he's shown his quality by, like we said, scoring 19 goals to get Atletico their league titles. He scored the decisive goal on the final day of the season. He was their big game player. He showed up when it really mattered. Mm-hmm. And it's not as if he was showing signs of getting injured for a period every season. Sergio Aguero has for the past 5-6 years. If there's not been a spell where Sergio Aguero's out, and yes, he still scored goals in most of those seasons, those injury concerns weren't there with Suarez, but you cast him aside and you bring Sergio Aguero in. And the point I made in the article is that normally you'd expect Barcelona to be going for all the hot young strikers in the world. You'd expect them to be getting linked to your Erling Haalands and your Lautaro Martinez. Yeah. And I do agree with you that it's out of necessity, but they wouldn't be feeling the effects of coronavirus so badly if they hadn't made so many bad transfer decisions over the past 5 years. And I think that Sergio Aguero, with his injury concerns, with the fact that he's getting older, and the fact that he's not going to have any resale value, he's a 2-year contract. I mean, he's done with that 2 years, regardless of whether it's been a success or not. I think he'll go back to Argentina with his family. That seems to be the path he's going to go down. So they're not going to get any money when Sergio Aguero leaves either. It's another signing with no sort of foresight. Mm-hmm. They're going to have to sell Coutinho, Dembele, Sergio Roberto. They're going to have to get these players sold so they can actually sort of take steps forward, because I think Eric Garcia, I think Wijnaldum, I think Depay are all pretty smart signings. Mm-hmm. But that shouldn't be the sort of basis of Barcelona's rebuild as free transfers. They should be able... They're one of the great institutions of the sport. I mean, they're one of the most famous clubs in the world, and they've sort of wowed us for years and years. And the fact that it's sort of stooped to this level, I think it's quite disheartening. And I'd like to see them get their finances in order, understand that it's got to be a long-term project. But I don't think Sergio Aguero's the way forward, despite being a fantastic player.
I totally agree with you. I think it is an interesting one, as you say. There's only 6 months of a difference between Aguero and Suarez, but I think Aguero was brought in not to play. I think Aguero was brought in as a peacemaking deal for Messi. I know there's a lot of... I think they have some extended family connection there between Aguero and Messi. They're very close on and off the park. And I think this was a case of, we'll bring your friend in if you stay for another couple of seasons. And it does look as if that is going to be the case, that Messi will stay on. Now, there's a fantastic comment coming in here from the Dude Abides that says, Barcelona do have an excellent crop of young players coming through just now, and they do. I'm going to mention a couple of them. You've got Ansu Fati, who has been a revelation since he came in. You've got Riqui Puig in midfield, and the player that really impressed me last season was Pedri. Now, he didn't come through the Barcelona famed academy, but he was someone that, as you said, they targeted the younger players. They brought in this signing, and Pedri, now part of the Spain setup, and it just shows that if they do have this young crop of talent coming through, you will have to supplement it with some older, experienced heads. But Gerard Piqué, 34, Sergio Busquets, 32, Messi, 33, Jordi Alba, 32, Aguero, 33, even Griezmann is 30. These are guys that are going to move on very shortly, and they aren't going to have any sort of sell-on value. So it is important that if they bring in Aguero, they go and do what they have done and get the option back on Emerson from Real Betis, a fantastic young right-back who's come in. Might have cost them a bit of money, but not as much as maybe a Haaland's and stuff that we were discussing earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Emerson's an interesting one, because that now means that you've got Emerson, you've got Sergio Roberto, and you've got Serginho Dest, who they signed last season from Ajax, who's a very young American right-back. He didn't quite have the best first season, but I think he will be a good prospect in the future. So you expect one of them to be sold. Probably not Emerson, because he just re-signed them. Probably not Dest, because he's a very good young prospect. So I think Sergio Roberto will be in the shop window this summer. And I completely agree with that comment that Barcelona do have an exciting crop of young players, and there's a case to be made that Barcelona were actually the best team in Spain this year in 2021. Under Koeman, they kind of started slowly, but I think that he's made them look the most sort of Barcelona-esque that we would expect since Luis Enrique left. Because
the tiki-taka style of Barcelona.
It's what you expect more, like these exciting young players coming through. It's what we identify Barcelona as. It's how we see them. And they haven't been that under Valverde, under Quique Setien. So Koeman has, and obviously I hate that sort of thing that he knows the club, and so as if he's going to make him any better, but he does really seem to have sort of
he knows the city really well. That's what works in Glasgow as well.
I must do, yeah. But he sort of has sort of dug into that that Barcelona style and that ethos really, and he seems to be bringing that out. And obviously he knows these players like Depay and Wijnaldum from his time as the Netherlands manager. He knows Garcia will be familiar as people there, considering he was a Barcelona youth player before he went to Manchester City. It's not. I mean, I know they won't spend a lot of money. It's a free transfer, but if they just kept him in the youth system and not bothered punting him, then
it saves them that hassle. Yeah,
and it's another sort of weird decision from Barcelona over the past few years. But I think that Barcelona will be a threat next season. I think the signings they've made and will make them a stronger side going forward next season. And I think they should stick to that. It's announced now that Koeman's going to stay. That was announced yesterday. He will stay on as Barcelona manager. I think they're kind of in a holding pattern until Xavi takes that job. I think it'll be just a case of when he's ready, when he feels like he can walk into a good... Because if Xavi had taken the Barcelona job last summer, he'd be coming into this absolute mess of a club.
Disaster, complete disaster, yeah.
He wouldn't want to ruin his legacy like that. He's too smart for that. So I think if Ronald Koeman's job is kind of just to stabilise Barcelona, to get them back on the right track, and then when the time's right, I can see Xavi coming in and taking that job. And this is the first step of it. But again, when you're signing these sort of older players on free contracts, Garcia aside, you might not have that opportunity. It might be another rebuild for Xavi. You need to sort of set in the long-term foundations now, and then you can sort of be a real success again.
I think that there is a foundation there with the likes of Puig and Fati and Pedri, like we were talking about. The Dude Abide comes in to say Gavi and Balde coming through as well. I think we saw quite a few of them being given an opportunity this season, or last season, sorry. I'm still getting over the fact the season's over at Barcelona. And that was actually the question I was going to ask. How long do you think Koeman can continue like this? Like, if Xavi's not ready, will they need another sort of, I guess you could call him an interim manager as such, to step in there?
Yeah, and it's kind of similar to Real. I mean, Carlo Ancelotti isn't their long-term managerial hope. it's a placeholder as well. And the talk there is that Raul, who's been doing stuff with the youth setup, he's going to be their sort of big manager to step in and sort of take them forward in their legacy. But so it's kind of similar situation that they're in this sort of holding pattern. I mean, bringing Zidane back was a bit sort of didn't feel right anymore. He'd done all he could there with the 3 European Cups. So for Barcelona, I think that Ronald Koeman it'll be season to season, and I think that the second half of this season showed that there was improvements, that we can keep him on, that he's not going to sort of tear us out the Champions League. It's not going to be too disastrous, and they're sort of heading on the right track. So I think that unless there's a big disaster, he'll be able to keep going. But I think even if he wins the league and Barcelona feel that there's a better coach out there, they'll chuck him to the side, because I feel like those sort of big clubs are in this sort of placeholding pattern just now until they can get their ideal candidates.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all there. But what I do think is Barcelona will be one of the most interesting sides to watch this year, because there is such attacking flair coming in, signing guys like Depay, Aguero, if you can keep them fit. I think they will definitely be a fantastic side to watch this year. And as you said, they're doing it on a shoestring budget now, which is completely un-Barcelona-like. So I think they'll have to move some of the big names out the door. So we'll see how that goes over the summer. And, as soon as someone has a good Euros, maybe one of the North Macedonian players, Alioski, like we just said, I'm sure he'll get linked to the Barcelona job. Now, we're shortly to be joined by Robbie Hanratty as we discuss the Scotland performance from the other night. And Robbie will be taking on Sean in the Insomniac Shootout quiz at the end. But before we get to that, we have random football news to discuss. It's the segment that has been going now for a couple of weeks on here. And let's start with King Bentner, Nicholas Bentner, who has probably, which comes to a surprise to many people watching, confirmed that he has now retired from football and not a couple of years ago, like a few people had thought. The striker, who made 81 appearances for his country, recently found himself playing in the Danish 4th Division. I think if you're playing in the Danish 4th Division, considering you've came and played for teams like Arsenal, Rosenborg and Juventus, that's probably time to hang up your boots. But Bentner, who was also given a 50-day jail sentence for assaulting a taxi driver a couple of years ago, is now saying that he is taking up his coaching badges. And to be honest with you, Nicholas, there might be still the Celtic job available by the time that you finish them, so keep at it, son.
I'd love to see that. That'd be Twitter meltdown would be fantastic. And you were tweeting about this one earlier on. It's a pretty exciting one. 24 years ago, Brazil played France in a friendly match. Sounds pretty boring. Well, it was in this game, football history would be made, with Roberto Carlos scoring what is arguably the best free kick ever. It's a free
outstanding.
Kick. Oh, it's
outstanding. Have you ever tried to do it? Have you ever tried to do it?
If I tried to do it, it would be a crime to the sport and a crime to the I wouldn't even. Have you ever pulled it off, Colin?
No. I mean, I'm right-footed for a start, right? But see when you watch the video back, the video is on my Twitter at Colin88. It's the swerve on it, and the ball boy is ducking even at the last moment because he still thinks it's going to hit him. It is unbelievable. And
what made it so unbelievable was it the physics, the wind, was it the ball itself? Well, Roberto Carlos told 442 in 2015 that the answer is he hit it and it went in. I mean, if you can just hit it and do that, then that's pretty outstanding, really.
So that's like the next game of 5s or 7s we're playing, mate. That's what we do. Just hit it. Yeah.
Just hit it. Don't overthink it. There's nothing special to it. Just hit it.
Oh.
And like I said,
well done, Roberto.
Yeah, well done. I'd say it'd be a crime to the sport if I ever tried to replicate that free kick. And speaking of crime, someone call DCI Ted Hastings because one of his officers is splashing the cash. Line of Duty star Vicky McClure and filmmaker fiancé Johnny Owen's new production company BYO Films are the new sponsors for Southern Premier League side Merthyr Town. The club are Owen's local team, and the pair say they look forward to getting down to the Penny Darren Stadium to cheer on the side next season. Merthyr Town fans will be hoping that the sponsorship deal goes down better than the much anticipated Series 6 finale of Line of Duty, which I'm still fuming about.
That was the worst ending to a TV show I've ever seen.
I don't
Now, people
know.
said Lost.
You watch Game of Thrones?
No, I don't. I
I
don't.
know it's up there as well.
I heard that the whole series of Game of Thrones was pretty poor, to be honest.
Yeah. You still had it. Yeah, you had hopes for the rest of series 6 Line of Duty, and then last episode.
Yeah, it was. Do you think they'll bring back another series, or is that it?
I feel like they want to tell. It's just trying to change the story a bit, but I don't know what it'll be. I can't believe the payoff. Still watch it. I'd still recommend it to people. I'd still say watch it because it's so good. But maybe just don't bother with the last episode.
Yeah, just prepare yourself for the massive letdown that's coming. And finally, back in Scotland, and some serious news for a change here on Random Football News. Peterhead are taking part in a sponsored walk to help raise funds for Gary Fraser, their midfielder's knee operation. Due to the current COVID-19 pandemic, Gary is currently waiting months on the NHS for an operation, and the club have decided to claim Ben Lomond as part of their pre-season training camp. Now, you may have seen this on Cy Ferry or Peterhead's own Twitter account, but the team is aiming to raise £10,000, with £7,500 of that going to Gary's operation and £2,500 going to mental health charities, which is a fantastic initiative by the club. Everyone here at the Football Insomniac wishes the guys all the best, and we hope that they smash their target. If you would like to donate to Gary's Just Giving page, the link is in our YouTube description. And just before we came on air, I checked it out, and it's sitting at just over £6,000, which in one day is absolutely fantastic. There's also an auction going on at the moment as well, and one of the prizes in the auction is Jim McInally's 1987 UEFA Cup final jersey, which is incredible. That's sitting at £7,000. That is a rare piece of Scottish football history, and it's still relatively cheap for what it is. But it also shows how much that Gary means to Jim, and how much he wants to get him back in there. And also on top of that, West Ham joint chairman David Sullivan donated £2,500 as well, which is brilliant, and it's a nice positive way to wrap up Random Football News. So all the best to Peterhead, and all the best to Gary Fraser. So joining us now, ahead of what will be a discussion on Scotland's performance against the Netherlands the other night, we're delighted to be joined by Robbie Hanratty. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Thanks for having me on. Enjoying the chat so far.
What do you make it? Exactly, he's dressed for it. I was going to say, what do you make?
Looks like a press conference.
I was going to say, what do you make of Nicholas Bentner retiring? I thought he'd retired a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that took me by surprise as well. He should have retired years ago, I'll tell you that. He was a bit of a meme, isn't he?
Do you remember when he had the lucky pants given to him by Paddy Power, and he got the big fine for it?
Oh, yeah.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
Mental. Stu Mack coming in here to say Bentner and Gerrard clash of the EPL champion virgins. I'm sure Chris Sutton and Jim White could sell that rivalry. They probably could. And Stu Mack also comes in to say Roberto Carlos describes a 15-yard fade into the top corner like he was shelling peas. Simple for Brazilians, just hit it. Oh, outstanding. I watched that video about 100 times.
That's fascinating, though. Like, that story about Roberto Carlos. I didn't know that.
Just hit it. It's Nike's new commercial. Just hit it. Be careful the context you use that in, obviously. Robbie, let's chat about Scotland's performance the other night against the Netherlands. A fantastic performance, 2 each. Were you surprised at how well Scotland lined up against this? What was pretty strong Netherlands side?
Yeah, I was quite surprised, especially with 7 players obviously back. They didn't travel with the squad because of the John Fleck COVID situation. So I was really surprised that we kind of took the game to the Netherlands. We pressed them high. Obviously, Jack Hendry's goal was some Stuart Armstrong pressing high. And I really feel it was a really positive performance. And I had no expectation that we would even get a draw, never mind being minutes away from nearly a historic result against the Netherlands. So hopefully there's more of that to come. And I've got a lot of positive vibes about the next month of the Euros, really.
Yeah, Sean, Jack Henry finding his inner Archie Gemmill to put one away after the first 15 minutes. I was sitting there going, that's Jack Henry.
What was he doing up there?
Oh, he had a nosebleed for a start.
I was in disbelief when I seen it was him. It was in the edge of the box. Like, I don't know what he was doing up there, but some finish.
Well, this might be a shock, but I'm going to sing Steve Clarke's praises. It's the Kelly fan in me coming out. But I always thought that that Kelly team and this Scotland team have been sort of unfairly maligned for being a bit too negative at times. Like when Kelly were on the telly, it was against Celtic and Rangers. They were chucking people behind the ball. But in other games, and sort of games where they were looking to get a positive result throughout, you could really see that the high press was there. They would get into themselves into attacking positions. They knocked the ball about really well on the other night against
I
Colin.
was impressed with that.
That Kelly team did that as well. They just technically, I think they got a bit of stick, but there was still sort of signs of a good, strong footballing team there, and I think we saw that. I think, like that team as well, though, they might struggle against teams who sit in against them. Netherlands obviously were looking to score goals. I think that Scotland can sort of really shape up to that, and this system works best when we're playing against a team that's better than us, probably. So we might see, and I think that well in the Euros. I don't think there's many teams at the Euros who we should be scoring 3-4 past. So I think that those group games, particularly sort of Czech Republic, Croatia, we'll be looking to sort of this sort of result, and I think that it'll give massive confidence. It's maybe a good thing we didn't win it, because I think if we'd been coming on here after beating the Netherlands, we'd been going.
Might have got ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
What I was really impressed with was the left-hand side of the park. We saw Tierney and Robertson almost doubling up down that left-hand side, especially Robertson putting the assist in for Kevin Nisbet's goal, which was a fantastic finish, by the way. First time, outstanding. I think that there's the basis of that team there, but something which was still quite concerning to me was the defence. Sometimes the ball was getting thrown in and it was like a lucky bounce here and there, and it would go into Gordon's gloves, or we'd clear it, but it wasn't fully getting cleared. And the amount of times that the ball got to the edge of the box and Stuart Armstrong wanted to play a 2-yard pass, and I'm just going, you have not learned your lesson from that England game. He just continued to want to play the ball out, and I think there's still a lot of work shown for Steve Clarke to work on.
Yeah, I think so, and this is a friendly game. You'd expect the intensity to be up in the middle of this month when the Euros games start, of course, and we're going to be playing some fantastic players, so we don't want to give them any chance. But also, you've got to sort of flip that on its head and say maybe the Scotland players weren't quite as sort of defensively tuned in, because there's not anything riding on the game as much as you're going for the win. So I get that. I don't think Stuart Armstrong will start in the Euros anyway. I think that if everyone's fit, there's other players in that midfield who go ahead of him, even though I think that was actually one of his better performances for Scotland.
Yeah.
I think,
I'd agree.
Yeah, so it'd be an interesting one. The interesting thing about Andy Robertson there, that he said that's only his second assist for Scotland, and he seems to get assists all the time for Liverpool, and I understand that they're of course a better team. But only 2 assists for Andy Robertson, who's played a good handful of games considering he's Scotland captain. It's quite surprising. So I'd like to see more of that, him sort of being brave and whipping balls and like that, because we've got strikers who'll take those chances now.
You've got me thinking, has he scored as many goals as what he has assists then? Does he have 2 goals for Scotland?
That one belter, didn't he? Has he got a second goal? He's definitely got the one. Yeah, 2 actually, yeah.
I thought he had 2. Maybe someone in the comments can tell us otherwise. But Robbie, looking at the performance, as you said, a great sort of morale-boosting performance for Scotland ahead of this game against Luxembourg on Sunday night, which we'll get to in a minute. But you did say yourself we were without 7 key players. Did anyone that stepped in for those players? So we're talking about your Scott McTominays, your John McGinns that had to sit back in Spain and watch it on the TV. Unlucky for them, obviously, in that beautiful sunshine. But did anyone stake a claim to say, actually, this is my jersey and you're going to have to fight me to get back into this team?
I think if you look in defence, you speak about the defence, I still don't know if he'll be a set in stone at the back for Scotland, because you've got Grant Hanley. He scored, obviously, in the previous international round of fixtures. And then Jack Hendry's played the last game against the Netherlands, scored. Liam Cooper, Leeds captain. Leeds have had a great season in the Premier League, first season back. He didn't really put a foot wrong.
No.
So it's and then you've got guys waiting in the wing like Declan Gallagher, Scott McKenna. So I don't know if that position's really. We've got left centre back. We know will be Kieran Tierney, but other centre back positions, goalkeeper. I don't like either goalkeeper. I know Marshall saved that historic save in Belgrade and all that, but I think they're both culpable to mistakes, and people might say I'm being harsh on Craig Gordon for that equaliser. I know it probably shouldn't have been a free kick in the first place, but I don't know if it was a wall or why he didn't dive or what happened, but it was a nicely placed free kick from Depay, but surely he should be trying to get a hand to it.
Would you reckon Sean should have saved it?
I don't know. I think it was a pretty good free kick. But I do sort of share the overall feeling that neither of them... I mean, I don't think John McLaughlin plays. But I don't think either of them are sort of nailed on number one. I think it will be Marshall because Clark trusts him more. But neither of them are sort of saying we're the definite starter, and neither of them sort of filming with that much confidence where I'm going, I feel comfy here, whereas I would if it was Alan McGregor, who was obviously the standout goalkeeper in the Premiership last season. Yeah,
I agree. That's exactly what I say. I say Alan McGregor or someone like Xander Clark. I was really surprised him or like Liam Kelly wasn't in the squad instead of like John McLaughlin, and even David Marshall. He hasn't been playing for Derby near the end of the season, so that obviously you've seen that before, players not play for the club and then play for the country. But I don't know who will be number one. And then you look at Kevin Nisbet. You asked me the players who played. Kevin Nisbet came off the bench, great finish, first touch, first international goal. Dykes I think that was his 10th cap, and like Dykes, he works hard, but I think Che Adams surely has got to be the number one striker for the Euros. I don't know what you lads think, but I think he's done it for Southampton in the Premier League. So
yeah, I think he's still nursing a bit of an injury as well, so it'll be interesting when it comes down to the game against the Czech Republic who lines up. Now, these players are also still going to be missing for the game on Sunday. Sean, do you think there'll be many changes, or will it be much of a sameness for the side that lined up against Luxembourg? Now, for anyone who thinks Luxembourg is one of these teams that we're just going to turn over, by the way, you think again, because they have been on a fantastic bit of form. They beat Ireland a couple of months ago. They only lost in the 93rd minute to Norway. It was a Haaland goal. And they gave Portugal a really good game, scaring them by taking the lead. So this is going to be a very competitive game on Sunday.
Yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely right on that with Luxembourg. For the players coming in, I think that everyone apart from John Fleck is back training with them just because they all return negative tests. So they're all
that's good.
there. So I think that'll be... But it's a tough one because do you risk any of the sort of guaranteed starters when we're so close to the Euros? I mean, imagine getting an injury to the likes of Kieran Tierney or Scott McTominay, Che Adams, Lyndon Dykes. It'd be a really big blow. So I think that we'll need... I think that maybe like Nathan Patterson should probably get his first start for Scotland. I think that Billy Gilmore will get his first start for Scotland in the game against Luxembourg because they're not guarantees to start the tournament, but I think they'll play just to sort of get the minutes out there. And Clark's not had a chance to see them much in real game opportunities live. So I think we'll see that. But I think you want to win the game to go into the Euros with confidence, but it can't be at the risk of sort of starting a full strength 11 and then seeing players get injured. So sort of find that balance, get the win, get the confidence, and make sure they're all fit.
And the game is live on Sky Sports Main Event on Sunday at 5 p.m. So come on, Scotland, let's get the spirits up and going for the Euros. Now, it is quiz time. It is the Insomniac Shootout. Sean, we had the first one last week and you won. So
Undefeated.
1-0. He's going for the Floyd Mayweather run here. By the way, any of you watching that fight at the weekend, Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul? That is a shambles.
Plan on it.
No, that's a shambles to boxing. The price they're charging for that in America as well is ridiculous. I think it's the best part of $100 over there.
Jeepers.
Crazy. Sean, you won last week. You can decide whether you go first or second this week.
I think I'm going to go first. I think it saved me well. It's like penalties, a wee bit pressure on the second one, knowing that one slip up could put me in the lead. So I'm going to stick with first.
So the format for this is very much like a penalty shootout. Both guys will get 5 questions each. If it is a tie after 5, we do have a tie-break question to determine the winner. Now, Sean, you're up first. Question 1. Who scored England's only goal through the week against Austria?
I just don't know this.
Oh, you still went second.
I was too busy watching Scotland, and I don't care enough about England to check. This is genuinely going to be a complete guess. I don't know it at all. Raheem Sterling.
It was Arsenal's Saka. So
Oh,
this is your chance, Robbie. Question 1 for you is, who was today appointed the Bradford City boss?
oh. I've been out all day today. Bradford City. Mickey Mellon.
See, I wouldn't have
Oh,
got this one, but no, fine.
it was Derek Adams.
Oh,
Derek Adams.
He left Morecambe the other day, did he?
Yes, he did, and walked straight into the Bradford City job. So 0-0 after 1 penalty each. Sean, you're up. Which two teams will play in the Under-21 Euros final this Sunday?
Portugal and Germany.
Back of the net. It's 1-0 to Sean. Robbie, you need this to equalise. And I'm sure you'll have seen this. Which player signing caused Partick Thistle to go viral this week?
Oh, Scott Tiffany, breakfast at Tiffany's.
Oh, that was a fantastic video.
Yeah,
Anyone
that was
that's not
brilliant.
seen that, that was outstanding. Go and check it out on Partick Thistle's Twitter page. 1 each after 2. Sean, you're up next. Which country was named as the host of the Copa America this week, days before the competition was due to start?
Got moved to Brazil.
Correct. 2-1 to yourself. Robbie, you're up next. Who scored Scotland's goal in their 2-1 defeat to the under-21s against Ireland? Northern Ireland, sorry.
Under 21. Oh, it was players. Oh, I see the squad, and it was all players I don't know. Oh,
It's a player you probably will know as soon as I tell you the answer.
oh, there was no one from Aberdeen. I want to say Fraser Hoyenby, but he wasn't there. I don't know. I honestly don't know. It'd probably be obvious, is it?
You've got to give me an answer first.
Oh, Glenn Middleton.
He has pulled one out of the bag, Sean.
Yeah.
2 each.
I just had to think back to Twitter, what I've seen on Twitter, and I was like, surely.
I was the same. I was like, I don't actually remember who scored this, but I feel like I remember seeing Glenn Middleton's name, so I thought that was
Yeah.
right.
I think he scored a penalty, if I'm right. So that's 2 each. Sean, you're up. Which player announced his retirement this week to join Dunfermline's coaching staff?
Stephen Whittaker.
Stephen Whittaker, without a doubt, he's right in there.
Bonnie Rig Roseman. There you go.
See, that was the joy of going first. I've not got who's going. It's just whether you're first or second. Right, Robbie, you need this to equalise. Queen's Park confirmed a ground share for next season with which team?
Partick Thistle.
Easy. So it's 3 each after 4. It comes down to the last one. Sean, there is a final day thriller coming up in the SWPL with Glasgow City and Celtic competing for the title. But if Glasgow win it, how many titles in a row will they have won?
I don't know. A lot. Why not? Let's just say that if Glasgow City, they get the 10.
They got the 10 a couple of seasons ago. They were going for 14 in a row.
14?
This is your chance, Robbie. This is it to come in. So you've obviously got your Scotland jersey on, but think of another team in our group, and it is England. And which team is represented most in the England squad? So which team has got the most players in the England squad?
I'm going to go Chelsea.
It's Manchester United with 4, which means it's 3 each after 5 questions. And luckily enough, I've got a tiebreaker lined up. Oh, that's good to be fully prepared. So your tiebreaker this week, and this is generally for it. Last week we just did it for fun. This is it, Sean. If you want to keep this streak going, if you want to start on this Undertaker streak, you need to win. You need to get this one right.
I know.
So the tiebreaker question, and the closest to the answer, once again, will win.
I was so close last time, but I was still wrong.
In days, how long will it have been since Scotland's last European Championship match in 1996 to the game against the Czech Republic next Monday? So I'm going to give you 5 seconds. And then Sean, you go first. Robbie, you go second.
How does maths work again? And then so that, and then, okay, I'm going to say 7,300.
7,300.
No,
you taking it? Is it?
8,500.
Yeah, it's going to be more. Yeah,
8,500 from
I just think it was
Robbie.
I forgot the
5
three.
years ago.
Did you forget to carry the 2? Is that what it was?
I don't know. I've done something.
So the correct answer, and you and Boy Martin's coming in to give us an answer as well, saying 7,900. The correct answer, and you'll probably hear it now on commentary going forward, the exact amount of days between Scotland's last European Championship match in 1996 to the game against the Czech Republic next Monday is 9,127 days. That means, Robbie, you are the winner on the Insomniac Shootout. Congratulations.
Cheers. A debut win. I'm happy with that.
It was a short-lived streak, really, but I was still undefeated for a whole week, so I'll take it.
Well, it's back to the drawing board, and it'll be back to the drawing board for us as we look ahead to the week of football that comes up. We've got some interesting warm-up matches when we are looking forward to the Euro 2020. Do you call it 2020 or 2021? It's 2020,
I'm
isn't
calling
it?
it 2020. Pretend it
What
never
about you,
happened.
Robbie?
I've heard people call it both, so I just call it, like, depends who I'm with. I'll be like, yeah, the Euros 2021, Euros 2020. Without the Euros, I'm not caring, to be honest, as long as we're there.
That is the best way to be. Robbie, tell the people where they can find you.
So any viewers or listeners can find me at Anyone's Game Podcast, which is a women's football podcast. You'll find us on Twitter at _Anyone's Game. And you can often find me doing work with GIV Media, Not the Old Firm, following men's football around Scotland. And also you might hear me on Radio Scotland from time to time to speak about Scotland's Euro venture.
Sounds good. And Sean, where can the people find you?
So I'm on Twitter at Sean McGill8, and if you fancy reading that article we were talking about earlier about Sergio Aguero and his move to Barcelona, that's on energysport.net and also on Twitter at ENRGsport. And there's lots of great stuff going up from our fantastic team there. So please do check it out.
Yeah, and as I said, we have the link to Gary Fraser's Just Giving page. Over £6,000 raised already. We hope that he raises more, and the more that they raise, the more is donated to charity as well, which is fantastic. On behalf of everyone here at the Football Insomniac, we hope you all have a good weekend. We will be back next Friday to discuss what is going to be, because it always is, an entertaining week in football. Until then, take care, stay safe.